An American family visits the American Memorial Chapel in St. Paul's Cathedral. July 4th, 2026 will represent the 75th anniversary of General Dwight Eisenhower's presentation of the American Roll of Honor to the Very Reverend W.R. Matthews, Dean of St. Paul's Cathedral. Since its dedication on November 26, 1958, the American Memorial Chapel in St. Paul's has been home to the Roll of Honor, which contains the names of more than 28,000 Americans who gave their lives in military operations from the British Isles during World War II. The chapel was established as a tribute from the people of Britain to their American brothers in arms, and the funds necessary for its construction were collected entirely from the people of Britain. On June 18, 2025, our party of 6 Claiborne family members were kindly hosted by Peter Chapman, Janet Payne, and other cathedral staff on a tour of the American Memorial Chapel and St. Paul's Cathedral. With their kind permission, we are able to share our visit with you through this presentation. We hope that in doing so, we will make the American people more aware of the American Memorial Chapel in St. Paul's and how it came to be. Wednesday, June 18, 2025. This slide shows Robert and Alex Claiborne photographed outside St. Paul's Cathedral. The southeastern section of the cathedral is in the background. The American Memorial Chapel, dedicated on November 26, 1958, with Queen Elizabeth II and Vice President Richard Nixon in attendance, is located in the apse, which is just visible at the east end of the cathedral. This 1980s model of the cathedral is found near the St. Paul's Fire Watch exhibit. As indicated, the west entrance, numbered 1, is on the left, and the American Memorial Chapel is on the opposite end, numbered 2. Also indicated are the locations of the nave, numbered 3, and the choir, numbered 4, all on the cathedral floor level. The location of the dome area is obvious. Also given are the locations where 3 German bombs fell on September 12, 1940, number 5, October 10, 1940, number 6, and April 17, 1941, number 7. Finally, the spot where the photo of Robert and Alex on the previous slide was taken, numbered 8, is given. This slide gives a diagram of the cathedral floor. The west entrance, nave, dome, choir, and American Memorial Chapel were also identified in the previous slide. German bomb number 5, with numbering from the previous slide, fell just outside the west entrance on the south side, but it did not explode. Bomb number 6 exploded in the roof space near the east end, damaging the high altar. Bomb number 7 crashed through the roof of the north transept, exploded, and created a massive hole in the floor. The position where photo numbered 8 was taken is also indicated. This photo from alamy.com shows bombed out areas in the vicinity of the cathedral. The aerial photo was reportedly taken in April 1945. Bomb number 6 exploded in 1940 in the roof space covered by the Alamy logo. On September 12, 1940, a 1-ton bomb, number 5, fell without exploding and was buried almost 25 feet underground just south of the west entrance. The only option was to remove it intact, and an Army bomb disposal team was called in. After 3 days of work, the bomb was extracted, loaded onto a truck, and driven to an area, Hackney Marshes in East London, where it could be exploded safely. Lieutenant Robert Davies led the disposal team, drove the bomb-laden truck alone, and detonated the bomb from a safe distance. The result was a 100-foot-wide crater in the marsh area. Had it detonated on impact with the ground, it would likely have destroyed the cathedral. Lieutenant Davies and Sapper George Willey both received the George Cross, Britain's second highest valor award, for their heroic efforts. The incident described in the previous slide is featured in a short video, At the Risk of Their Lives, released by British Pathé in September 1940. The stills in that slide are from the video, which can be viewed here. In 1946, the Very Reverend W.R. Matthews, Dean of St. Paul's, published his book, St. Paul's Cathedral in Wartime, 1939 to 1945. He also provides a detailed account of the September 12, 1940 unexploded bomb incident. This 1944 magazine article is part of the exhibit on the St. Paul's Fire Watch, which can be seen in the cathedral. This slide shows the damage that resulted when on October 10, 1940, bomb number 6 exploded in the roof space above the high altar, and the resulting debris crashed to the floor below. Today, the area behind the high altar is the American Memorial Chapel in the apse at the east end of the cathedral. St. Paul's Cathedral stood above the raging inferno that consumed many of the surrounding buildings during the Blitz. Photo taken on December 29, 1940 by Daily Mail chief photographer Herbert Mason from the roof of the newspaper building. This slide shows the damage that resulted when, on April 17, 1941, bomb number 7 hit the cathedral and exploded over the floor of the north transept. The blast penetrated down to the crypt through the cathedral floor, blowing out all the windows in the building and buckling the great west door. June 18, 2025. This slide shows the view from the west end of the cathedral, upper level. In order, on the floor level, appear the nave and its 3 archways, both north and south, connecting with the respective aisles. The dome area, where someone is addressing an audience, this area includes the dome altar at its east end with a cross, the choir, the high altar and its canopy, and the American Memorial Chapel, clearly identified by the central stained glass window at floor level. We were met by our most gracious hosts, Janet Payne, volunteer guide, and Peter Chapman, whose association with St. Paul's began in 1951 when he was admitted to the boys' choir.
So, first of all, welcome to this absolutely amazing building. It's absolutely lovely to have you here with us. I just want to start by saying that you are on an incredibly historic site. This is where prayer and worship has continued for over 1400 years. And the building that we're actually in at the moment is said to be the 5th building here on the top of Ludgate Hill. This building replaced the old medieval cathedral called Old St. Paul's Cathedral, and that was left in a ruinous condition after the Great Fire of London. Well, what that did was to give the court architect at the time, Sir Christopher Wren, the most amazing opportunity, because he had a vision to build here, where we are today, a huge new style Baroque building with a dome. Now, the story of how that happens takes a little while to work through, but I hope during the course of your time, by the time we get to the end of the tour, you will have discovered how he had lots of difficulties, but he achieved his ultimate goal. So, in 1710, when the cathedral was finished, and it was started in 1675, so that's just 35 years. Look around you, 35 years it took. None of the modern technology that we have today. It could take 2 weeks to get the stone from the river up onto the site here. The stone came from the south coast of England. It had to be shipped, had to come by sea, and then it would have to be brought down the River Thames on special barges, and then, as I say, brought to the river just below here. So in 1710, when Christopher Wren completes this amazing building, as Peter has already said, it was not beautifully light and creamy as it is today. It was very dirty. In fact, he put a wash on the walls to lighten it all up. It did not suffer more damage. This is actually a photograph of all the scaffolding that was put up. And I even found a picture of just below the Whispering Gallery, a cement mixer. So these are the days before health and safety, you realise. And a night of heavy bombing, everything is flattened all the way around the cathedral. And of course it was Churchill who said St Paul's has got to be saved at all costs, and indeed it was. So that's, I think the dome has got some mosaic decoration underneath it. That's part of the Victorian edition. But
Memorial panel remembering Billy Fisk, the first American airman in the British service to be killed in action. He died on August 18, 1940, of wounds received 2 days earlier. Pilot Officer Fisk's wings are displayed below the panel. This slide shows the left side of the memorial to those 33 former St. Paul's choristers who died in the 2 world wars. Across the top of the memorial, spanning both left and right sides and the door at the center, which is not shown, reads the inscription, "To the memory of choristers who fell in the Great War." Visible in the upper right panel, left side, is a quotation excerpted from 1 Samuel chapter 25, verses 15 and 16. "The men were very good unto us. They were a wall unto us, both by night and day." The upper center panel bears the names of 12 men who died in World War I. Another 12 names are given on the right side of the memorial, which is not shown. The 5 names on the lowest center panel are of men who died in World War II. The right side, not shown, carries the inscription, "So they passed over, and all the trumpets sounded for them on the other side," which is adapted from John Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress. The names of 12 more men who died in World War I and of 4 more who died in World War II are given on the right side. This slide shows the view from the dome altar near the east end of the dome area, through the choir and the high altar and canopy, and on to the central stained glass window of the American Memorial Chapel. This slide shows the three saucer domes above the choir, St. Paul's Cathedral. Near the end of the 19th century, the artist William Blake Richmond was commissioned to design mosaics for the choir. In his design, Richmond encrusted the ceilings with millions of small pieces of glass and gold leaf in fabricating the mosaics. For the actual imagery, he drew on both traditional Christian iconography as well as classical cultures. The ceiling of the choir was completed in 1904 and features three saucer domes, which together provide an extraordinary vision of the creation as described in Genesis chapter 1, verses 20 to 25. From west to east, top to bottom in the photo, appear the creation of the beasts, the creation of the fishes, and the creation of the birds. This description is adapted from the online article, Choir Ceiling, William Blake Richmond, 1904, as it appears in Google Arts and Culture. This slide shows the view from one of the benches in the choir on the north side, where you notice the intricate carvings in oak and lime that were originally completed by Grinling Gibbons and convey his emphasis on flowers and foliage. The details of the cherubim heads above may well have been modeled on individual choristers, it is said. At the end of the south choir can be seen the bishop's special stall, easily identified by the ornate wooden mitre above it. The central stained glass window of the American Memorial Chapel can now be seen more clearly. Between the chapel and the choir, you can identify the high altar, protected by its ornate overhead canopy. This area, shown in more detail in the next slide, was of course seriously damaged in the October 10, 1940 bomb attack and was rebuilt anew after the war. The view given in this slide focuses on the high altar and canopy, as mentioned in the previous slide. The American Memorial Chapel is behind the high altar. How do you enter the chapel? Looking directly down the row of stalls at the end of the choir, walk around the large floor candle and holder. To the left of the high altar, you see a row of 6 stalls, which are near the entry to the chapel. As will be seen in the second slide following, the northeast or left stained glass window of the chapel rises above these special stalls. During the November 26, 1958 dedication service attended by Queen Elizabeth II and Vice President Nixon, 6 of the 12 Americans representing the next of kin of those whose names appear in the American Roll of Honor were seated there. Another row of 6 stalls is found on the right side of the chapel altar. At the inner ends of both sets of stalls, facing toward the altar, are 2 small medallions, both overlaid with a thin covering of gold, enclosing portraits of Queen Elizabeth II and President Eisenhower. This slide shows the inner end of the left set of stalls, which encloses the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. Partially visible in the photo is the floor of black and white Italian marble and one of the 5 pointed stars, which was the emblem of the Allied Army of Liberation. Inlaid in the floor is the inscription, "To the American dead of the Second World War, from the people of Britain." In this slide, you are looking at the left stained glass window in the American Memorial Chapel, above and behind the special row of 6 stalls referred to in a previous slide. The details of the left window are described in the second slide following. This slide gives a closer view of the left window, which was introduced in the previous slide, adapted from the American Memorial Chapel in St. Paul's Cathedral. In combination, the three stained glass windows, left, central, and right, are designed to represent the service, sacrifice, and resurrection of the Christian soldier, based on biblical scenes from the life of Christ. The left window is bordered by the insignia of the first 16 states to be admitted to the Union. Among these are Rhode Island, 2nd Lieutenant Glenn Ferguson's home state, number 13 on the right side in the middle with a golden anchor on a blue field, and Tennessee, Technical Sergeant Marion Thornton Jr.'s home state, number 16 on the right side at the bottom, images of agriculture and commerce. The bottom center of the left window shows the adoration of the infant Christ by the wise men under the Star of Bethlehem and a choir of angels. The middle panel shows our Lord washing the feet of his disciples, symbolizing here the routine duties of the American enlisted man and emphasizing the greatness of service, however humble. The top panel reveals that our Lord sometimes resorted to force, as in the cleansing of the temple. The emblem between these two panels illustrates the seed, which in dying brought forth fruit, as described in John chapter 12, verse 24, foreshadowing Christ's coming sacrifice. Not visible in the photo, at the foot of the left window, reads this text, "For I came down from heaven, not to do mine own will, but the will of him that sent me." Carpenter's tools nearby suggest symbols of service in the arts of peace, as our Lord might have used at Nazareth. This slide shows the chapel altar, adapted from the American Memorial Chapel source cited on the previous slide. The oak altar table is covered with a cloth of crimson silk velvet embroidered with a dove set in a large golden sun. These serve to remind us of the infinite variety of God's creation, from the great ball of fiery energy to the little bird which represents peace after war, the still small voice after the wind, the earthquake, and the fire, the return to life after the deluge. The altar cross and candlesticks are of silver, heavily plated with gold, and except for the bases, they were hammered by hand. The golden citrines, black quartz changed in color by heating into a yellow stone, set in the 4-foot 2-inch cross, weigh 915 carats each. All three silver pieces carry the traditional combination of hallmarks punched in place by the Goldsmiths Company: the leopard's head, the date letter, the lion, and the shield with the maker's trademark. The oak paneling behind the altar reveals, at intervals, 4 of the 8 beautifully carved pieces in limewood that depict American birds, fruits, and flowers. In this photo, 2 American carvings can be seen bordering the oak panel on the right. 2 of these American carvings are represented in this slide. The carving on the left, starting at the top, represents white flowering raspberries, an osprey, lemon columbines, and hepatica. Near the bottom you see what appears to be a small fish. The portion of a second carving, shown on the right, reveals an American space rocket, adorned with 5 stars near its nose cone. The National Aeronautics and Space Administration was established by President Eisenhower in July 1958, just 4 months before the dedication of the American Memorial Chapel. This slide focuses on the carved eagle that rises from the center of the oak paneling behind the altar, from the American Memorial Chapel source. Rising from the center of the paneling is a carved eagle, overlaid with a thin covering of gold. The inset shows an enlarged view of the eagle. Although it has the characteristic of all American symbolic eagles of looking to its right, it is intended not as an American emblem, but as a symbol of sorrowing strength, the strength of the men who died, the strength of those who suffered and survived, the divine strength by which we live. This slide focuses on the central window that rises above and behind the carved and gilded eagle, from the American Memorial Chapel source. The central window is dominated by the supreme and everlasting sacrifice of the crucifixion. At the foot of the cross are the Virgin Mary, pierced by the sword of grief, and the faithful disciple St. John as representatives of all who mourn the loss of a loved one. Upon the cross is the inscription, written in Greek, Latin, and Aramaic, Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews. With Jesus are shown the Holy Spirit, portrayed by a dove, and God the Father, who is here symbolized by a fountain of light in recollection of his first recorded act of creation. Below the cross, partially visible, just above the carved eagle in the photo, is a pelican, sacrificing its own flesh and blood to provide for the life of the future. At the foot of the window, not visible in the photo, are the words, "Now is the Son of Man glorified." We did not photograph the right window, which carries the final message of the resurrection. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. As shown in the following slides, our party of 6 entered the American Memorial Chapel. In this slide, Charles Williams, the Dean's Verger for St. Paul's, has opened the case which contains the roll of honor, and Peter Chapman is reading from Lord Baillieu's The Story of the Chapel, which appears in the 1958 monograph on the American Memorial Chapel. From the American Memorial Chapel source, the roll of honor is contained in a case of glass and gold, resting upon a marble pedestal which stands on the rear steps of the high altar of the cathedral. The high altar is clearly visible in this photo, and the long view beyond extends all the way to the great west door.
He wrote some words which encapsulated what this is all about, and I wondered if you'd like me to read them to you.
Please do.
With the artists and craftsmen whom we engaged, we have tried to create something of deep religious experience, something of outstanding beauty, something which will be a shrine of remembrance and place of pilgrimage for those who mourn, that they may be comforted, something which will inspire hope for the future in the underlying unity and identity of purpose of the peoples of the United States and of Britain and the Commonwealth. I thought those were very fine words, and I'm glad to read them to you today.
Thank you so much. This photograph focuses on the inscription in golden letters which appears on the pedestal. This chapel commemorates the common sacrifices of the British and American peoples during the Second World War, and especially those American servicemen whose names are recorded in its roll of honor. This tablet was unveiled by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II on 26 November 1958 in the presence of Richard M. Nixon, the Vice President of the United States of America. Now that you are familiar with the location of the Roll of Honor within the American Chapel, the two photos in this slide, taken a few minutes earlier, show the closed case that contains it. In the upper left photo, host Peter Chapman shares a lighter moment with us. In the lower right photo, Charles Williams is starting to open the case so that a page in the Roll of Honor can be turned. In this slide, the case has been opened and page 25 of the Roll of Honor is displayed. Each day since the dedication of the American Memorial Chapel in November 1958, one of the 473 pages in the Roll of Honor, each carrying the names of Americans who gave their lives while either en route to or stationed in the United Kingdom, or who died between D-Day and VE Day while permanently based in the United Kingdom, has been turned by hand. There are more than 28,000 names in the Roll of Honor, but keeping in mind that 26,000 American airmen died while serving with the 8th Air Force, the Roll of Honor does not include every casualty that meets these criteria. To illustrate the point made above, the name of First Lieutenant P.A. Becker, USAAF, appears on page 25, but the name of First Lieutenant R.A. Becker, USAAF, does not. First Lieutenant Raymond A. Becker was a B-17 pilot with the 569th Bomb Squadron, 390th Bomb Group, based at Framlingham, Suffolk. On November 16, 1943, he and the crew of Shiftless Skunk were shot down on a mission to Rjukan, Norway. They ditched in the North Sea and were never seen again. Lieutenant Becker is listed as killed in action as of August 17, 1946, in the Story of the 390th Bombardment Group H, published in 1947. But his name is not in the Roll of Honor. First Lieutenant Paul A. Becker was the navigator with the B-17 crew from the 367th Bomb Squadron, 306 Bomb Group, and their aircraft was badly damaged on the February 3, 1945 mission to Berlin. But the pilot tried to bring them home to England, only to ditch in the English Channel. Lieutenant Paul Becker was never seen again. His name and that of Raymond Becker appear together on the Wall of the Missing at Cambridge American Cemetery, but only Paul's name appears in the Roll of Honor. The names of First Lieutenant Paul A. Becker and First Lieutenant Raymond A. Becker appear together on the Wall of the Missing, Cambridge American Cemetery. On June 18, 2025, I was honored to be asked to turn the page in the Roll of Honor for that day. This slide shows a sequence of 4 photos taken after I had put on the white gloves and as I carefully turned to pages 26 and 27. Keeping in mind that the book is now almost 75 years old, having been presented to the Dean of St. Paul's Cathedral by General Dwight Eisenhower on July 4, 1951, the need for the white gloves is self-evident. The lower left photo also shows part of the left stained glass window and the 6 special stalls which provided seating for 6 of the special American guests at the November 1958 dedication of the American Chapel. Possibly one of their family members is remembered on the page of the Roll of Honor that I was allowed to turn that day. We did not have the opportunity to locate the names of Technical Sergeant Marion Thornton Jr. or Second Lieutenant Glenn Ferguson in the Roll of Honor. However, an identical copy of the book is displayed near the entrance to the chapel, and visitors are welcome to locate the names of family members within its pages. In this slide, I was able to find the names of Glenn, Second Lieutenant J.G. Ferguson, USAAF, and Marion, Technical Sergeant M. Thornton, Jr., USAAF, in the copy of the Roll of Honor, where they appear exactly as in the 1951 original. Since the restoration of the American Memorial Chapel was completed in about 2004, annual remembrance services have been held for veterans, their families, and associations. Special major services were held in 2008 and 2018 to mark the 50th and 60th anniversaries of the chapel's dedication. The photo above from the November 13, 2008 service marking the 50th anniversary shows veteran Richard Robert, Ambassador Robert Tuttle, and the ambassador's wife Maria preparing to lay a wreath. Photo courtesy of Peter Chapman. Midway through our tour of St. Paul's and the American Memorial Chapel, we had a group photo taken with Peter and Janet. From left are my brother Robert and his wife Mary Boswell, Peter, my wife Terry, me, and Janet, and our sons Alex and Robert in the back. A Cathedral staff member took this photo.